question. Let's put this back up here and see where it's going. It's still people are going with a very dangerous game. That's impressive. Close but a Vols win is second. Is that second? Or am I seeing? No, second is Vols by 2 touchdowns. All right. So close but a Vols win is in the middle. So we got a good debate going there. So go ahead and click. Tell us if you think the Vols are going to win this in a blowout. Go there. If not, tell us it's going to be a tight game, or if you think it's going to be a very, very dangerous game, you can go there as well. There's your NCAA scoring leaders on offense. Ole Miss went into yesterday at 55 points a game. I think that's going to drop a little. And Tennessee's staying pat at 54. When you look at the offense, and let me just say, as we went to break, I said, did I get the T's right? No, I didn't. I jumped ahead of break. So what we're talking about here is the offensive line. You look at that offense, you look at trying to keep that offense going, keep those numbers up, you're not going to average 54 for the year. I know that. But in terms of getting back to what you've been as an offense under Josh Heupel, is this offensive line good enough to do that, Paige?
If you have Lance Hurd and you have John Campbell Jr., they can get you to 10-2. If you don't have both of those guys, I think we're going to see a lot more of what we saw against the Oklahoma defense, where even there were penalties ends up becoming a concern when you don't have those two guys in there. Andre Carrick had a horrible holding penalty that called back a 50-yard completion to Dante Thornton. Nico Imaliaba is very uncomfortable in the pocket because he's not getting the time that he's used to when you have both of those guys in there. Also, you see the 2 sack fumbles that he had in that game against Oklahoma. So I think if you have those 2 starting guys back moving forward and they take a lot of the snaps consistently, I think they can get to 10-2. If you don't have them consistently, I get a little nervous down the stretch because there's always a game that might surprise you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of just where I'm at right now.
Carbon copy. She's right. Left to right. If you don't have the starting 5 of Hurd, Carrick, Mays, Spraggins, John Campbell Jr., I've got questions. It went back into my season prediction of, does everybody remember the stretch last year without Cooper Mays? Just how impossible it was to peg where Tennessee was going to play or how they would perform that day. The best 5 offensive linemen are those 5. Dane Davis is okay. Larry Johnson has performed admirably, if you will. But those are your best 5,
let's call it like it is. They played poorly at Oklahoma.
Oh, the last time we saw them in their last challenge, they played very poorly, and there were times.
They're getting NIL. I can be harsh.
No, it's fair. Look, you can talk about them like it's Sunday, even though they play on Saturday. I'm 100% there with you. I'm now having questions about my 10-2 prediction because if Lance Hurd is going to return from an ankle injury soon, then I
Each
need
week.
Okay, right.
Keep hearing that. And the problem with the John Campbell thing is he seems to be a guy at this point who's going to be hurt. He seems like a guy who's missing a lot of time. So I have questions as to whether or not you're going to be able to roll with that starting 5. We're sitting here saying, well, if you've got the starting 5, I don't know that I feel comfortable you're going to have that starting 5.
Well, you rolled exactly into what I was going to say to add on to what they said.
It's good producing.
Yeah, it is. We scripted every word out. No, that's not true. Yeah. But how realistic is it that they will have those starting tackles? I agree. If they're there, yes, I think it is good enough for 10-2. But how realistic is that? I think it's tough, especially with Campbell, who's left every game in the first half at some point. Yeah. And then who knows the status of Lance Hurd. There's just a drop-off there. And quarterbacks that are comfortable in the pocket are the ones that are able to dissect defenses and have great success. And I don't think they are, even though the offense, you can mask some offensive line issues. We've seen it. They don't have to be elite. But the health of it is a concern because they're not very deep in that group.
And I know we're kind of focusing on Nico, but when John Campbell Jr. went out and you saw a lot of the shifting on the offensive line against Oklahoma, even their run attack completely changed. Dylan Sampson was not as effective. Then you see Deshaun Bishop, kind of that game being more tailor-made to him because you're not being able to get the gaps that you're used to getting when you got those guys on the edge. Dylan Sampson wasn't as effective, and I think when you don't have a good running game, that changes everything.
The last Tennessee touchdown drive of the first half, I was on the phone with Bob Hodge, and we were talking about the offensive line. I said, well, Sampson's going to have to do it all on his own here, and he did. I mean, it was the most Jalen Wright series he has had this year, where he was having to carry guys down the field on his back and create his own yardage, and that's what you're talking about. And I don't know that that's sustainable over the course of an entire season.
Which is funny you say that, and credit to you on the other side of the set. You said this off air, and we've been mentioning it during our afternoon show. This Tennessee offensive line is better at run blocking than they are pass blocking. Yeah. That's why there are times where I've caught myself going, this is really peculiar because we're so used to them excelling in that particular portion of their game. I'm more concerned about the Nico passing game being a step behind because of how poor the tackles have performed with the width of the width of the pocket. They're not creating as much as we should see.
Yeah, and the other thing is you also, quarterbacks can help their offensive line as well. And I don't know how much a guy who's started 5 games can help his offensive line. I don't think he's the finished product yet. Obviously, I don't think. He isn't the finished product yet. I just wonder if there are things he could be doing to make things a little easier, not in terms of blocking on the outside, but I mean, is there a way that he could be helping with the tempo, that he could be calling out the protections, that he could be aiding the offensive line in what they're doing, that he'll be able to do next year, that he'll be able to do later this year, that he can't do now? Because I think that's just another thing that you're throwing in there. It's like, okay, we had questions on the offensive line. Okay, we've got some injuries on the offensive line. And oh yeah, we got a quarterback who's not used to getting pressure in the pocket. He's not used to anything, really, at 5 games in.
Well, it's a test on this coaching staff, too. Yeah. It's a challenge. Can they create some run game to help that offensive line with the QB? Mm-hmm. I don't think they haven't had many design runs. They did it on the 3rd down to move the chains, to pick up a 1st down. But that's something that they could do to try to help their offensive line. Another thing is, they're going to go up against elite competition, but there's some pretty good defensive lines on teams that they're assumed wins over. One of them is Kentucky, and the other is Arkansas on Saturday. They played pretty good on the D-line. Kentucky wrecked Ole Miss's offensive line. So those will be challenges within that offensive line, that battle beyond just the team, which could give them trouble and kind of bring the game back a little closer.
I also think maybe a little bit is Nico being better with the pressure, too. Obviously, one of the sacks was on the blind side. The other was just him not being aware of the pressure and blitz coming his way.
The running backs, tight ends, they got to help.
Yeah,
they can help as
sure.
well. Yeah. All right. When we come back, now we're going to talk about Nico Iamaleava and those Heisman odds. Is there somebody else on the team who should be getting more hype than him? And also, we'll kind of ride off this segment. I wanted to also continue talking about Nico and the fact that is Josh Heupel maybe keeping him in bubble wrap too much? Come on back.